I'd like to call to order the February 14th, 2022 Macedonia Planning Commission. We give a roll call.
Sure. Mr. Westbrook?
Here.
Mr. Sheehan?
Here.
Mr. Cox?
Here.
Mr. Wallenhorst?
Here.
And Mr. Ross is not here.
All right. First item is approval of the January 10th minutes. Anybody have any comments? It was a long one.
I'd move to approve.
All right, I got a move.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. First applicant is Wayback Burger. Is there somebody here? You want to come on up? As long as you're comfortable with it. Just want to tell us real briefly think about where it's located, just to get it. Or can we get your name first?
Yeah, Todd. Yep. Todd is going to be Todd.
So this is next between AT&T and Sherwin.
Right.
Has that ever been occupied?
It was, I think it was part of AT&T, then they downsized it. So.
Okay. Okay. So simple signage for the front.
Right. Pretty standard wayside burger logo.
Okay.
So those are mounted, illuminated from behind, so they take a look.
Okay. Mr. Spruce, you had comments on this one?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report dated January 29th. As the applicant stated, for Wayback Burger, sign divided into two lines. In total, there's 22.19 square feet. They're permitted to have 32 square feet for their tenant frontage. So as far as the area goes, the sign can be approved as submitted. I did provide the commission, really, it's more for the administration to be able to track these retail plazas and where the square footage is for all of the tenants. So this 22.19 square feet will bring the total square footage for the entire plaza to just under 477 square feet, and 550 or 585 is permitted. So no issue in total with the overall plan for the plaza as well.
Do you guys have any questions? This looks like pretty easy for us. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the submission as submitted.
Second?
I'll second.
All right, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Nice.
That was
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Super Bob, you guys, is there any other open spots in that plaza right now?
No.
No, it's all full. Okay, so they're still well under with.
Yeah, that's the only site that's ever been open since the progression of filling through since it got built.
Okay, perfect. All right, next is Bind Tech. Is there someone here to represent? Hello? Sign this here and then we can start. Can you get your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Sam Kostuk. I'm with Signorama, our sign contractor.
All right, so, and you guys got a hold of some comments, I think, and then made a follow-up submission.
Yes, and she forgot to include in the packet, but I believe you guys should have it.
Yeah, we got it,
Okay.
email and everything.
Where it's a faux stone base that matches the building, and then raised letters on the monument.
Okay. All right.
And then they eliminated the other two sides.
Oh, they just eliminated, that's what I
They're
was
just gonna,
wondering.
yeah. Not part of the scope anymore.
All right. Mr. France, do you have any board comments?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report's dated January 29th. I did receive the updated plan, so a few of these comments are a bit outdated to the new plan. So as the applicant stated, they're removing the 2 directional sign panels that were mounted to the building facade. So if that's the case, then there's no issue as it relates to the 4 square feet maximum and the need for a variance. So that's eliminated. Then the only thing that remains, the area of the sign is fine. It's 28 square feet and 40 is permitted. Really it comes down to the architecture or the design of the sign. I still remain in the position that the sign should be all block with stud-mounted dimensional letters and a logo. This is the same discussion we've had over the course of the last 12 or so months with a few other applicants. And the commission has, in previous applications, taken the position that it should be more architecturally significant out at the road. And so I've maintained that position still in my report. The applicant did revise it to have that faux brick on the bottom to sort of try to match the building, which is a split-face block. But I do think that it's a fairly visible sign out at the road right away and should have some little more architectural significance. Also, while it's not in the application, it's pretty basic, but it does need to be in a landscape setting. And that could be something that the applicant on resubmittal, ultimately, if this is approved tonight, administratively, that could be approved for conformance with landscaping standards.
I guess, what is the material on the revised? I know you got the faux block at the bottom.
It's an aluminum sign cabinet, and the base would be a faux stone, so it looked just like real stone, just made out of a different architectural material. And then the top portion and the framing would all be out of aluminum, and then the letters would be dimensional. And there are many signs around Macedonia that are similar to this in design. Honestly, the client really just wanted a face change. They bought the building, want to rename it, and now we're getting into like a budget that is far beyond what they were even expecting, even having to do the revision. So to make the whole thing out of block and then put lettering on it was not really, I guess, they're trying to strongly encourage me to ask that you guys not make them do that because it would really increase the cost significantly for the building. As far as the landscaping is concerned, there's already landscaping on the existing sign. The new sign is going in the exact same location as the existing sign. And I guess there's, trees and mulch, and it's going to go in that mulch bed.
I'm just looking at other ones, just in that same stretch of road, and a lot of them are full block, like Mr. Francis requested. And that is something that we have been doing to try and upgrade the look of a lot of the signage right here. I mean, what they had previously that you got shown there, I mean, that's really, obviously it's gotten rough looking. I'm not sure how old it is, but
well, it's pretty old.
It's seen better days, and that's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid. Is
Sure.
If they hadn't wanted to change their name, that sign might be there looking kind of crappy for the next 20 years or something. So that we're trying to get something that holds up, and that if they want to do another name change, it's just popping off the letters, and it's coming up with something new.
I have something, Kevin.
Yes.
Did you do a cost study to see what it would cost to do the one that Macedonia would prefer versus what you're going to put up? Do you have any idea what the cost?
We have not done, but it would probably double the cost of if we did it. Well, if we did it in faux, which would the fake foam-based product, then the cost would increase a bit. But if we did an actual block, it would double the cost easily.
Be that much more?
Well, yeah, because you'd have to dig out a whole foundation for. I mean, you're talking and then we'd have to do a stonemason, otherwise we build the
Right.
sign in the shop, fabricate everything, and just go and put it in its place.
Well, what Mr. Brestbrook said, though, I've seen it before here, that to say, well, other signs are that way, up and down the street, that really doesn't do it, because when they come up for maybe new signage or a new tenant or something in there, we ask them to do the same thing, to try to upgrade the whole area. Isn't that right?
It is, and most of the slides there even are.
If we knew that the cost would be, couldn't be that prohibitive to put block.
Well, I guess it all depends on if the city would be okay with just doing the faux for the whole sign. I mean, it would look the same as the building. It's just not a full masonry foundation, it's not a full masonry block with split
What
plates.
is the actual full material made of?
It's a high-density urethane.
And I know that's been used on the base for a lot of stuff around town. Do have signs like that. Mr. Prince, do you have any experience with the whole sign being of that material?
So I think it would need a foundation if you're doing all block. There's probably, I don't know if that material can, or similar material can take like a thin brick type material that would adhere to that.
So we can build an aluminum cabinet, put thin brick on it, but then I don't know that there's a product out there that would match this block thin brick. Unless you are okay with another thin brick that would be similar color, it wouldn't be an exact match to what the building is.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to match that split face block exactly, but my preference would be to get as close as you can with a compromised thin brick material, given that the full block does require a footer. Otherwise, I would say go back to the, is that like a wood routed type sign, the existing, do something similar to that and just change the name.
But I thought that's what they wanted to do, but I thought that was turned down.
What's that material, the existing sign?
That's HDU. That is the same product that we would carve or make stone, fake stone, or fake, block or even brick.
Is it just the posts that are looking pretty worn out and missing pieces?
Well, the initial concept that we had submitted was basically to wrap the posts so they look brand new and a brand new face. So everything would look new, but it would be in that style, post and panel.
Because the building, we're looking right here too, the building isn't even a brown, or isn't even a gray material, it looks like more like a brown. So what you're proposing isn't even going to match the building, except for the split face component of it, but the color of it's not going to. So I'm
The intent of the split face was to match the exact split face color of the building. But there's two colors on the building. There's like a brown and then more of like a pinkish reddish.
So,
The picture just doesn't reflect it.
yeah, because what we're seeing right here, the block, what you guys have submitted almost looks gray. It doesn't have any tone to red or
It wasn't
anything.
intended to. It was actually a picture taken of the building and then we cut out and used that as the base pattern because we don't actually have a rendering pattern of the
Do you
building.
guys have a sample of what you're planning on putting up then?
We can provide a sample,
I
yeah.
think we need to see a sample,
But
but
it-
what I'm seeing here and what we're seeing there and what you're explaining are three completely different things.
Can I see real quick? Yeah, so that is actually a cutout photo of the building. So our intent is to actually, we can get that product raw and then we paint it to match the building. So it matched the building split face brick.
We're seeing the building.
Yeah, it's that block right there. And then there's a brown block, but that's the block we're looking at. And it's more of a pink.
I guess ultimately, as long as it comes out looking. the
It'll
same
look like the
color,
building,
because
yeah.
that picture just doesn't.
Yeah,
It's just a picture.
They're not matching at all.
The intent was, yeah, in the rendering, we tried to find something in our database that kind of matched. We didn't, so we just had someone take a picture of the building and put it there, but it has to be custom made.
Okay. I think the samples need to be brought to this type of stuff. I mean, so we make sure that we're seeing what you're seeing, because what we're seeing in two different pictures are two completely different things.
If we don't want to get into, like, if we don't want to necessarily get into a full foundation, I would probably rather see something made out of the core material completely with the letters attached to it rather than.
I agree.
just replace the face or
Yes.
something, because that's more consistent with.
I'm fine with the foam material, it's a high density product, and with it not being directly like in an area where there's traffic or where there's gonna be, salt thrown up
Yeah, that's
against it and
pretty
stuff
far
like
off the
that,
road.
then I have no issue with that, but I agree, I think it needs to be a full foam material to match the color of the building, and letters need to be attached to that banner.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems like the size and everything seems reasonable. It doesn't necessarily show up in that picture their submittal, but there is some landscaping that looks like, flowers, small, low stuff, with all kinds of landscaping with the trees and stuff behind it. So I don't know that extensive shrubbery and things like that's needed, since they do have a lot of landscaping behind it.
But as long as that's maintained and completed, because I'm sure once they do the signs, it's gonna be pulled out, someone's gonna get lost.
I wonder if this is something, if you want the same size, with the material, to match.
So the full
Maybe the whole-
material all the way up?
All the way up, and I would probably be okay with like an administrative review, as long as it stays with that pattern, especially with the administrative review and the final color as well to match the building.
You guys okay
Do you guys
with
feel
that?
comfortable with that? Yeah, I do.
Why don't you make that motion, Kevin? I go along with it.
I just would have like to see through that cap sitting on top of it, so basically like it was an entire
Yes, the rim kind of should.
stone roof cap there.
Yeah, so stone wall, lettering, cap on top.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, and color match the building.
Okay. And then, are you guys okay with, so there's the two colors options on the building. There's the primary color and then the accent color. We're gonna go with the primary pink color.
I think there's a lot more of that on.
Is it truly a pink or is it red? I guess that's where I'm kind
I
of.
have a bunch of photos from the site and it looks a little more pinkish, like brown pinkish, but it's not really a red. I mean,
Yeah, I guess.
in different light, it looks a little
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I mean, I could be okay with that.
Yeah, I guess as long as you guys are comfortable with saying the color.
It definitely needs
Good.
to match, you
Yep.
just don't know which. I guess I would say the main building material color.
Yeah. What about you, Joe? You got any?
I think
Okay. All right, then I'll make a motion to approve with modified materials, being that the entire sign is made out of stone-looking material for the entire sign, with a cap on top with attached letters, to be approved for look and color administratively.
Go ahead, second it.
I'll second that.
All right. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So I just have to have the office send you a new rendering? and then-
Yeah, we'll work with Susan.
Administratively.
Send stuff
Okay.
through her, and she'll take a look at it.
Okay.
If they can't come to some kind of agreement with you, they'll come back to you.
Okay, I think it's pretty cut and dry. And then if you guys actually need a sample, we'll have to custom make a sample and show you what it looks like. Otherwise, we'll try to do a better job in the rendering, show that it matches the building.
Okay.
That'd be
Okay,
good.
thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Next up will be Target. If you guys want to, assume someone's here for Target. Thanks. Can you get your name for the record?
Yeah, my name is Jeff Emmel. I work for Kinley Horn. I'm here on behalf of Target Corporation.
All right, why don't you give us a quick overview of what's being planned here?
Sure, so Target is proposing some site improvements to the parking lot of the Target store located just down the road from here at 8282 Golden Link Boulevard. These improvements include restriping lot lines, adding some signage and some light poles. And this is all part of Target's drive-up program, which is a service they offer where you can order groceries and other items online ahead of time and then come to the store and you park in a designated parking space and the Target team members bring out those items to you.
So it's just to make sure I was out there to see it. So is it in the road that's currently got, they're kind of a smaller area of?
Yeah, so there are some existing drive-up stalls and it will be, we'd be restriping those existing stalls into standard parking stalls to match those existing there. And the new drive-up area would be, that's to the west of those existing.
The existing one's right here, and then that's the new one right over. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see, who do we want to start with? France, you want to go first?
Sure. So my report dated January 29th, and everything the applicant stated is all documented in my report. Removing 8, restriping, creating a new row of 24. I thought it was to the east. Maybe the geographer in me can't figure that out. And then the drive-up beacon that exists currently is going to be relocated, and then a new one will be added. So you have 2 drive-up beacons in the new row. And then they're going to add some additional light poles. So one of my comments in my report is that the photometrics weren't real legible to be able to read. And then it needed to identify the correct parking stall dimensions. And I wasn't sure how power was being provided to the new light poles. A resubmission did occur. It was provided to the city, took a look at that. And that does identify the correct parking stall dimensions. It states that the power will be coming via conduit to the new pole locations. It's still not sure exactly if that's existing, that conduit underground, and it's just pulling new wire through, or it's not necessarily pertinent for planning commission approval, but just was curious how that was being accommodated. And then the photometrics, I just need to see those at some point. I'm sure there's no issue with them, but just so we can confirm that the photometrics meet the city's typical standard of 1 foot candle at the property line. So far from the property line, it's probably not an issue. Mm-hmm. So I think it can be approved with a few minor clarifications.
Yeah, if you'd like, I have full-size copies of those lighting plans. The digital copies too, if you can view them on PDF, you can zoom in and see those photometrics, but these are pretty clear too. If you'd like, I can show these. All right, these are there. Yes.
Thanks.
Big size. That's on, the photometrics there are page E3.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I had 2 comments, but they've really both been taken care of. The first one was really just a suggestion, not a requirement. And the second one, regarding the sizing of the spaces, the applicant's already provided the clarification on that sizing. So from my point of view, we're good, Chairman.
Okay, I guess with your first comment, that was about the crosswalk itself.
Yeah.
I agreed with that, and I guess it came back to this comment, you didn't want to wipe out a tree, which I understand. Are you putting in a new curb ramp off of the front walk?
I went out to the site right before this, and I was just wondering about that too, if there was already
I didn't see one, but there was also a couple cars sitting there when
I don't think there is
went
one,
by.
from what I can see when I was there.
I believe no. According to the plan, it's a proposed curb ramp.
Yeah. Now, there is an existing curb ramp there today.
Is that where you were going off of?
Yeah.
Door?
So I'm not sure if,
So I was just wondering, could the curb ramp be moved, you know, to, see, I don't know.
So
I'm
that's right. There's not one there with the connection.
Oh,
down
it's
there
over here.
further.
Okay. So is that?
Yeah,
spot-
yeah, per the number call outs on the plan, Chairman, it's a proposed curb ramp.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm seeing, I was looking farther down. So there's this ramp. Doesn't look quite as drastic. I guess it's tough to tell on Google here.
That's the road right there that's gonna make it.
This one is
No,
here.
that's existing one, the next one.
Oh, it's the next one, so that would come way to the far side?
so that's the existing curb ramp there. And
Okay.
the proposed one is,
Okay, just farther
Yeah,
down?
just right there.
Well, could you
yes.
locate that one so that, you know, your existing one is over here.
Yeah.
Could this be
This
slid
thing
down
here.
so that you have a straight ahead crosswalk instead of putting it, move it?
You might be getting
So
too
it's
close to those.
it's in between these two planters here.
You might be getting too close to that wall right there. I
Yeah.
think to have the current you're gonna need there.
Uh,
If you pushed it all the way just over to the edge of that wall, I would say then, yeah, you'll get closer, but I would say you can't probably, yeah, you could go somewhere right in there and then shoot straight across.
I just think, yeah, it's odd, especially when, like now, when there's slush and there's, you know, when they do a good job of keeping the parking lot relatively clear, but no, I don't know that anybody's gonna be, well, I don't know, I'm a traffic guy, I like seeing it.
It's unusual to cross at an angle, I think is what your chairman, was what you're saying.
What's that?
It's unusual to cross at an angle. It's, you know, not typical of somebody's behavior when they're crossing the road.
Yeah, and that tree, I guess, yeah, probably is right smack dab in the middle of where you would want to put the access to it if you wanted to shoot right down the middle.
We prefer to preserve the tree there.
Well, could you, if you had, I mean, I think it makes more sense to come right straight there, so I'm assuming they could go right down the middle of the aisle with, to hit all the different cars that are sitting there. Is that what, is probably how it would occur?
If the tree wasn't there.
Yeah, and what I'm wondering is if
Probably.
they just put a tree on each side, I mean, again, I don't want to lose a tree, but maybe we just have to put a tree on each side of the island, and they can slow that curve, go right down the center of it.
Either that, or, I mean, if it could be moved to right here, could you get it, and then you've got access to everything, instead of cutting through there. And eventually cutting through. Do you think it's possible to move that curb ramp?
So it's the angle.
Yeah, it's an
Yeah.
angle that I'm not crazy about, it's not a huge deal, but a straight ahead one, so people really know where to stop. I mean, it's kind of what makes it a weird spot to stop in the middle of this, you know. I just think it would make more sense if it would be a straight shot.
I think they've got the room to do it. If you pushed it, because right now, you're showing it like right here. If you came over just a little bit further, that wall doesn't start and then back here. You can do your straight shot, and you might get a slight angle, but you can still be better than that right there.
And we're not asking you to move it
Yeah.
40 feet
No,
or
no,
to
of
a
course
different
not.
aisle.
I think that's,
I guess if you come up with
Yeah.
something that, you know, it physically won't work and you've got some kind of issue and we're not seeing it quite right here on Google and something's different, you know, I wouldn't say that it would be a deal breaker or anything like that, but I think if you can move it, you would prefer, or I would prefer, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Does that sound okay? Sound good. Okay. Do you have anything else?
That was it.
Sure. You got anything? Any comments?
I have no comments.
Mr. Smith? Nothing. Mr. Francis, you were okay with everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the discussion on the curb ramp, so which whatever the commission wants, I think people are gonna walk the way they want to walk, but yeah. But I think making it more straight makes
The
sense.
employees though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it needs to be straight. It's more for primarily for the employees that are bringing this stuff out, so
Yeah.
having that more. Customers are gonna do what they wanna do, but being able to walk straight across makes it a lot more, it's probably safer,
They're
it's
pushing
definitely
a
safer
big
for
cart
them.
full in the
Yeah.
winter. All right, what, you guys have any other?
Can this change be done administratively like the last one?
I think so.
Yeah, you may maybe make that motion. I think you're right about that.
And how tall are those light poles?
The light poles will match the existing, I believe, which, 20 feet.
20 feet? So that's more like the parking lot lighting poles, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It's a shoot box.
Are those a different fixture than the parking lot lighting poles?
I don't know if you know.
Maybe.
How further are we going to put those are, to cover more light up that wall.
That's
with
special.
the-
Yeah, I guess it's not. a
I'm not
big
sure of
deal.
the exact fixture, but the finish will,
We'll match that, it's
Yes.
not gonna be some
Yeah.
shiny bright silver thing and the rest are
yeah.
dark. Okay. All right, you guys have any other questions?
Just want to clarify that the three items in Mr. Francis' letter, those are reflected on the plans that were submitted?
So is that,
They're on the updated.
Yes.
They're on the updated plans. What we just took in or received here at the meeting was the lighting plan. It checks out. It's perfectly acceptable. So Mr. Rodick's submitting that into your administrative record.
okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the restriping and parking plan with the exception of the curb ramp is moved so that the crosswalk is perpendicular to the drive aisle to be reviewed administratively.
You have to say anything about the tree or not, Tim?
I know, the tree,
No, okay.
because they're avoiding it, I think.
No, okay.
Is there a second?
Go ahead. Bill.
I'll second.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Thank you.
thank you, thanks. Next is Spruce Hills Crossing Phase 3. Who's this guy? There we go. Oh.
Not bad.
Second, I'll get organized here for a minute. Okay, Mr. Cole, why don't you give us a quick overview of what part of doing this?
Yeah, I guess it's the final plat that we submitted for to be recorded, and then there was some loose ends from our last meeting. The landscape plan, and I think Brian had some comments too, and some loose ends that just need tied up. So, first, I guess, you know.
I could have good
Yeah, go
comments and
ahead.
Mr. Franz, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
There you go.
Good. So I thought, so the last time my report stated February 1st, we saw this a little bit ago, and I thought a year ago you were developing it all as together, 2 phases, 3 and 4, and then it looks like you were doing 3 now, and maybe 4 is being blocked off as future. It's shown as like a open space for future development. Is that?
Our last meeting, I had it approved as being able to break it up as originally, I'm trying to blank on their development name, but I was gonna develop it as 1 phase,
Mhm.
this phase 3. So I submitted to split it into 2 phases. So, and that was approved, and that's kind of what we, but with the plat, we're gonna submit plat for the first 18, and then as we build that out, we'll submit the new plat for the other 18.
Okay, yeah, and that's fine. It shows as a block of open space, which, signifies for future development. I didn't realize that that's what you were looking to do last year as well.
Okay.
So, just to run quickly through my report then, the commission may remember that the road is a private road built to the public standards, and the planning commission did previously approve that. The covenants and restrictions, I think, were submitted last time, but I noted that we just want to confirm that those are submitted and the city has those documents.
So we're joining the current association, and I have an approval letter that I sent to, I think, Joe and Bob several months ago. And just saying that the actual sign off, it will be when the plat is filed. So the way the legal document, the attorney wrote it up, we have to have a filing number before they can actually officially sign off on it.
So,
The association.
yeah, so it's okay. So you're amending into their association, which is fine. Are there any particular rules or regulations or things different or triggers that would change anything in their documents?
There is a filing that's, once the plat is recorded, that has to be filed amending their, allowing us to join.
Yeah, to join.
And I think I sent that to Bob 6-8 months ago from my attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually have a copy of that.
Okay.
Yeah, that can't be
It
filed.
appeared that
though.
Yeah.
covenants and restrictions for all 4 phases are going to be consistent.
They're going to be, okay. And that's all. I just wanted to make sure that all if you're doing that, then they just would all be consistent. So it sounds like they are.
Yep.
And I know I talked to Mark Gadetti. I know he had some correspondence a while back. The next item was the construction agreement. It does look like we have an executed construction agreement now.
October, yeah.
So that's good, and we provided that to the city's law director, so I think we're okay there.
Yep.
And then the sidewalk configuration appears to be the same as back in '21. The commission did approve that or waived some of those requirements, so just as a reminder, it looks like it's the exact same configuration as previous.
So, yeah, I mean, it was, we had stopped it at, I think, the beginning of lot 53, but I think the council wanted it extended into the next phase, which we show on the updated plat and improvement plan. So, yeah, planning commission okayed the shorter, I called it the sidewalk to nowhere, but we'll just extend it through, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, we had a lot of conversation about that here, so I wasn't aware council sort of required that, which is, their.
We'd have to go back and get their approval to end it early, I guess, so.
Okay. And then the commission did approve the lighting last time. That hasn't changed. The only thing I just suggested is you maybe want to consider not using a Cleveland pear. They got about a shelf life about 15 years. They're really they're a beautiful tree, but they're soft and they just splinter really easily. So I just suggested something like an oak or a maple or a redbud, because they take a lot of abuse in road right away.
Okay.
So just felt that should be something you'd want to change. And then the last item, which is really the more just significant item, I don't know where the conditional zoning certificate stands in the approval by city council. If that's happened, that's great, but it is a necessary step.
Okay. Is that? Not sure where that's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only raise it 'cause it's been in my, consistent through my previous memos. I just don't want you to get too far down the stretch and then somewhere it comes back and says, oh, you don't have this approval. So you want to button that up.
Okay.
I'm sure there's not going to be an issue. Everyone knows it's being developed in these final phases. Just for your sake, make sure you have that buttoned up. Because I think this commission opined on that already. It just, the way the code reads, council in this case has the final approval.
Okay. So it goes there after this.
Yeah, that's, in this case of this, yeah, it would go to council.
All right, thank you.
Plat's acceptable, Chairman.
You know, planners, we're long-winded.
Mr. Roden?
I have no comments.
Yeah, there was one concern, I guess. The original plan was to have a fire access road because of the length of the dead end. And I don't see that on this plan. I don't know, maybe I'm missing it. So really two things. One is that the Kelly Drive looks like it's 306 feet in depth. And so that requires a turnaround of 96-foot diameter cul-de-sac. And what's listed here is much less than that.
So page 3.0, it shows the access road.
3.0.
Collapsible valleys at the end. And then, yeah, I guess the plat, I don't know how that reads maybe, but it does not, it just shows it as in the block F2.
Dave, for what it's worth, that is shown on the improvement plans that have been approved by the building department. We can share that with you if
Okay,
you
yeah,
haven't
I appreciate
yet
that.
seen it. I know that Chief and Don Bell had seen it,
Okay.
so it
And
is.
Don said, yeah, and I was looking at this, and I spoke to Don. Don is retired, but he
Yeah.
said it was, had been discussed.
Yeah.
Looking at there was like an original set, and then there was a revised set. If you're looking at the revised set, I think it was only select pages.
Okay, yes.
The original ones.
Mhm.
Right, I'm not seeing the,
Looking at here, if you could squint real far, it shows it coming
Yeah,
over
there it is. Yeah.
okay, all
Mhm.
right, that was the concern. Okay, thank you.
Hopefully, we'll never have to use it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one way to get away from it is to sprinkler all the houses.
All right. Commissioner, do you guys have any questions? So are we just approving, what are we actually approving?
I think you're wasn't it the landscape plan that wasn't complete with the last improvement plan, and then a lighting plan wasn't fully approved, and then the plat, which I submitted.
So-
Don't know, like 18 months.
Yeah, I would just suggest that the commission just approve it as submitted with the comments, couple minor comments from the staff.
Okay.
And that way, it's very clear what's been approved, so everything's done at this point. And then we can button those few items up, I think, administratively. If you choose not to do a different tree, it's a private street, so it's up to you.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, so I think I would just approve the whole thing on the record.
Okay.
And, because you have accepted the sidewalks the way they were. Council wanted them a little differently. That's fine. They're the ultimate
Decision maker.
decision maker, approving authority, which tells me maybe they already did act on the conditional zoning certificate. So I'd just make that, administrative subject to, and that can be handled administratively.
Okay.
And then, the other things, you've already approved the lighting style and plan, so I think just clearly to show that he doesn't need to come back here anymore after this.
All right.
And Chairman, and that's good too, Brian's idea, because if you approve it that way, then that gives you and I the ability to sign the Mylar plat title sheet when he brings it into the building department. So without the yes vote, you and I can't sign it.
Then I'll make a motion to approve the plan as submitted with the addition of Mr. Francis, a few minor comments to be reviewed administratively. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So just to be clear, the plat is signed by planning commission, the Mylar.
It's signed by the chairman and by myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so bring
Not every member.
Bring it to the office, to the.
Yeah, no,
Correct.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Thank you. Right.
All right, this is Don Bash Jewelers. Someone here from them?
Yeah, I think that, yeah.
You would have it in the records.
So, yeah.
Second.
Yeah.
Here we go. Okay. All right. Please your names for the record.
Mark Wazinski, MDL Construction Services.
Dustin Bash, Don Bash Jewelers.
All right. So I know, I think Mr. Rodick has been talking to you guys a little bit about tonight what, how we were going to try and do this, have some discussion on it, knowing, well, I guess there's been some confusion due to the approvals you got from BZA. Are they carried forward until now? And I think it's the administration's position that those have not carried forward. They're not, they have expired due to the time length, and you're going to need to go back to the BZA to get those again, which I think we haven't talked about here yet, but I think until we get those answers from them, it's tough to do a full review of it. We can give you, let you guys give a presentation, tell us what's been updated since a couple years ago or something that you guys were in. Give us some more to think on, give you guys a little bit of feedback. But have you come back probably once BZA issues are finalized. That's what you guys understand.
This is the first I'm hearing of it. I thought tonight was, a chance to look over the plans. I know on May 6th, there was a letter written to Planning Commission asking for an extension.
I think that was probably a planning commission extension.
Okay, you can't do a BZA extension?
No.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, we'd love to have you present, show us everything, give you some feedback.
Sure.
I don't know if we want to jump into review comments or if you guys want to give any kind of update to
the purpose for us tonight was to get some feedback from Mr. Franz, from the city architect, and understand that, some of the basic things we do or are doing or looking for are acceptable to the city and the planning commission, and then go back and refine the design to meet their suggestions. So that's, sort of just an introduction of the project to getting comfortable with and making decisions on what's possible to be done to make it approvable.
I think we can do that tonight, yeah. Okay, well, but let's do it. Prince, would like to go over your thoughts on the project?
Yeah, appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. My report's dated February 2nd, and then I had a follow-up report dated February 12th, and that's for the lot consolidation, the easy piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, if you want to start with that one.
Yeah, we can do that one. So it's consolidating numerous parcels. I think there's 7 parcels into one approximate, just a hair over 2 acre parcel. The property, as everyone is aware, is zone business office. The minimum lot for parcels in that district is 1 acre. So there's no issue with that. Now, in the business office district, under both the subdivision regulations and then the BO district, the lot has to be 150 feet wide measured at the setback line. This was a comment that was previously provided. I still think that is something that You should make sure the applicant, if you don't have the 150 feet, you apply to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance for that. You're going to be applying for variances, so that's one additional one isn't that big, isn't that big of a deal. Plus, it's not that significant of an issue, quite frankly. So that's something. And then the main accessory buildings can't exceed 30% of the total parcel area that's identified in the subdivision regulations. I don't think there's any issue at all with that. So as far as the subregs, section 1117.03B details standards for lots, and I think that the lot as proposed complies with those standards. The width to depth ratio is just slightly greater than 2 to 1, which is a desirable ratio. The code says 2 to 1 is the preference. You can go to 3 to 1, I think. And so it's, I think, just slightly over is just fine. The code does discourage multiple frontage lots, but you can't really do anything about that in this case. And the consolidated lot does provide frontage on public streets. So no issue with the consolidation plat as proposed, except that you do need to button up that loose end of the variance, because the subregs sort of tie right to the code on that same issue of the 150 feet. And then the more, I guess, lengthy discussion then relates to the development plan.
Should we deal with one? Everybody, Charlie, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, with comments with regards to the consolidation plat. I mean, not really. The plat looks fine. Obviously, before we are able to sign any plat, we would need the surveyor's stamp and signature on there and signature lines for the chairman and myself. But otherwise, it accomplishes the goal of consolidating all of the parcels into one, which is what you need to do to build the building. So.
Mr. Rodick, any comments on the lot consolidation? Do you have any? No comments. Mr. Smith, I'm guessing you don't care about the lot. All right. Committee, do you guys have any questions on the lot consolidation portion of it?
Yeah, it's okay.
Well, maybe, I mean, do we want to just act on that first, get that out of the way?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the lot consolidation as submitted with Brian's comments.
Should we specifically mention that his comments require some variances?
Yeah, so just to run that, then Brian's comments do specifically address that there is going to be a variance for this portion of the lot consolidation, so going to BZA to get that would be
setback
part of the approval.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
So if I can, Mr. Chairman, so I think that it's fine to note the variance issue, but I don't want the consolidation plat to necessarily be held up or tied to the variance, because technically if they want to consolidate the lot, we really don't know whether the 150 feet is going to apply or not, or they consolidate it, go sell it to somebody else. It's an issue that just needs to be noted that it does require that pursuant to the code, but I think really you would make your recommendations on the development side of the next discussion related to that 150 feet. I think noting it's fine, but I wouldn't tie it to it as a performance criteria.
Yeah, I agree. If the owner wants to consolidate all the parcels, he's free to do so, regardless of whether or not there's a building planned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I agree that they don't have to be tied together.
Yes, I'll modify that. I motion that we approve the lot consolidation plan approved with Brian's notes.
All right, still second?
I'll second that.
Okay. You got that? Any other comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're good with consolidation. Now it's not the hard part.
Yeah.
Mr. France, if you'd like to jump into the.
See, they're 1 for 1, so now we don't feel so bad. Yeah. Well, and I think lots of the comments that are in my report and probably in Mr. Gelati's report are things that can be worked through, quite frankly, technical requirements. at the end of the day, the variances are the most critical to the pathway of development in this case. So with that said, my report's dated February 2nd, and I do go right into the discussion about the variances. And so, unfortunately, they did expire, and you'll need to renew those. But as you renew those, I think you need to be cognizant of the one we just talked about, because when I read the minutes, there was no action taken on that particular issue. So when you reapply, I think you just need to be very clear and sort of enumerate what you're asking for. And I think there's 3, potentially 4 variances that you need to get. And if I remember correctly, reading the minutes, I think only 2 were addressed. So we'll kind of walk through here in the report. The first one being the 150 feet, section 116706J requires that it be 150 feet wide at the setback line. So I think your architect will be able to tell you if it meets it or not. I don't know the plans as they were printed. They're the scales off, so I can't tell you, but if it meets it, great, you don't need a variance. If not, you'll need to request a variance. And then it looks like the one issue that was addressed was the use question, and so they did approve the original variances, which again are expired. They did approve the proposed use, a retail jewelry store in the business office district. And then it can continue to be, it doesn't have to be Don Bash if you sold to, Brian Franz's jewelers. I'm not a jeweler, but if you wanted to, you could. It approves that use in that zoning district. So that was addressed. And then the request was for a 21.5-foot setback. And that issue was discussed. It was actually discussed, went on to a different agenda item and came back to the issue and settled on a 40-foot setback with some landscaping. Now, the landscaping piece is a bit vague, and I do have comments on that, what that actually means. I think you're very close to those couple properties there. I think we need to be very cognizant of that when you develop out the landscaping and the sort of the screening and buffering to the residential. It looks like you have a lot of landscaping. That I think you accomplished. The question is, on a scale plan, how that lays out, what's the separation of those? Each tree requires different separation. So when you provide a resubmittal, just make sure all that's documented, because I will be looking at making sure that mounding and buffering is appropriate for those adjacent residential homes. And then we talked about the expiration. So I detail out the variances that are needed. So again, a use variance to either permit it or conditionally permit jewelry stores in the BO district. You've already had that addressed, so you need to go back and get that addressed. And then the dimensional variance for the 150 feet, if that's needed or not, your architect will confirm that. And then a dimensional variance to address the 90-foot setback to the residential property lines. And then a 4th variance might be needed to address the required separation of the driveway. I mentioned there could be a 4th one, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. So going on to page 2 of my report, the 60-foot setback from the public right-of-way, the building as it fronts on Route 8 appears to have been adjusted to meet that. Just when you submit, there'll be scaled plans, and maybe just throw a label on there to confirm the 60 feet. And then the next item is the building height allows up to 3 stories or 40 feet. It's shown on the plan as 42 feet to the roof peak of the tower. I had noted that the building official should confirm if that height adheres to the definition of building height identified in 113302. Now, with that said, I still am concerned about the height of the tower as it relates to the rest of the building. I think architecturally, the height of the tower should be dropped down. I like the concept, but I just think you lower the height of that tower a little bit. It actually might do you better, as my guess is you're probably trying to bring in a lot of light in an area where you're showing jewelry or something. You might actually do better by dropping it down a little bit, and it'll just blend with the building a little bit more. We talked about the 150 feet, whether a variance is necessary. Parking wise, you provide more than required by code, so that's fine, but I felt that a couple parking spaces should be considered for elimination just to reduce some of the blind spots going into that north parking lot. There's the first one, it's that sort of awkward one right as you come into the parking lot. I felt like if you eliminate that, just turn that into a green area, maybe put small shrubs or something in there, you'd have just a little better visibility coming in and out of the parking lot there. And then when you get to the northern end, which is closer to the residential, eliminating those last two spaces to give yourself a little more turnaround and that hammer turnaround. I feel like it's just better flow as you get up that far into that northern part of the lot. And then the next item relates then, item 5 here relates to section 1171-11E3, requires drive entrances to be 60 feet from residential zoning districts. It's hard to tell, but I don't think you're meeting that. It looks like it's the previous plan that showed a 45-foot separation. And I had raised previously about trying to line up the aprons with where you're currently at in your existing plaza. Just feel like having another offset intersection is not what we want to accomplish there. So if you line those up, I think you'll more than meet the 60-foot separation, but your architect will be able to tell you if you can meet it. If you can't, you will need to get a variance for that.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is a fire hydrant there that we are trying to avoid.
You can relocate it.
But we will look and see if we can make that work or.
Yeah, the only way you wouldn't be able to relocate the fire plug is if it's meant to be there because the fire code requires it a certain distance, each hydrant. I don't know that answer, but you could take a look at that.
Yeah, we'll investigate that further, but that's the only reason that was done at that time, so we'll look at that.
Sure. And so that issue has to be dealt with, determine if it can or can't, and if a variance is needed. And then the rest of the stuff, signage, you're going to submit that at a later date as a separate submittal. Might not be bad to just, continue to show it on your plans, what you're thinking. Photometrics plan, that'll be key. I think the photometrics plan is real important, especially as you go along that northern part of the site, as you come up to that existing residential development. Want to make sure that you don't have any light bleed to the north. And I think you're going to have a lot of landscaping to help with that, but I don't want to see the big tall shoebox style lights, and that's not what needs to be along that northern edge. So, and then the landscape screen, as I talked about, just taking a look at that to scale what that, sort of lays out to protect that northern area. And then from the architectural standpoint, felt that the windows should include muntin bars. It's something that's a required item in the town center district. And then I felt there's too much ephes at the tower roof peak. It's kind of a prominent feature, and maybe do some sort of other material there and eliminate some of that ephes. I think would make it just a little nicer architecturally. And then I talked about the height of that tower compared to the rest of the building. I think lowering that would be helpful. And then, unfortunately, use of concrete block is not acceptable in the town center district. So some other material, I think, would be more appropriate. And this is just more of an architectural preference. And the commission has approved this with other commercial buildings recently. But, I think a standing seam metal roof would really add a lot of character as opposed to the asphalt shingle. But that's, something just as a consideration point rather than a requirement. And then, of course, you have stormwater management, and you already addressed your lot consolidation plan. So I think for me, those are the bigger picture issues that, I'll want to see flesh out as you move forward. I think at the end of the day, and I've maintained this previously, I think your use on this lot is actually probably maybe in some cases a better use than what you could get in the business office district. Because I don't think you have a real heavy traffic pattern, and a higher end jeweler, but I think there's some key details we want to work on as we go forward and getting those variances and just sort of fleshing that out with the BZA and then come back to the plans, I think will be important.
There's nothing in your report that I don't think that we object to at this point. I don't see anything here that would have to change. So.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys continuing to work with the city and the staff on refining the plans.
Did you get a hold of the architectural review comments?
Yes, from Mrs. Schultz.
Yeah. She's not here, but I mean, you can go through this yourself. I was just kind of skimming through just to see if there's any major big deals that she was asking for. I mean, I think she mentions the
mud bars.
Mud bars. She mentions brick color, just to make sure you're getting like a red brick that matches the other things in Macedonia. I think she mentions the tower as well. Yes. Any major objection to reducing that height somewhat?
No, and then she also suggested a different roof detail for that tower.
Yeah, she showed that.
Which I kind of like. I think that's a nice element. I think we'd have trouble doing standing seam on the size of that is with those angles.
I would agree.
So, we just have to work through that and see what that balance is. If you guys are, I like that look. If we can go with the asphalt, then I'd probably go that route. If you're favorable to that.
I think if they move with that kind of look.
Yeah, I like that. That's nice. Yeah, and you wouldn't be able to do that with the standing seam. So
especially
yeah,
at that size, it's too small.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, so no major issues, I think, with July, did you?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I'll run through these quickly. Your preliminary plan reserves an area for stormwater retention basin, so that's a good thing because you'll need that as we move along, so thank you. It's very preliminary at this point. I get it. Usually the next step is to kind of take it to the next level of detail to show some preliminary grading and utilities and that type of stuff. So I'm sure you'll do that here as we continue to move forward. One question for the applicant, the preliminary plan you guys submitted for this meeting shows a large empty space right in the very middle of the site. What is the intent, or is there any thought as to what that would be used for? Or is it just simply lawn?
I think at this point it's simply lawn. There's not much we can do with the setbacks, and I mean, we're kind of pushed back to where we are and oriented the way we are just due to the physical constraints of the site.
Okay.
So,
Okay. And I don't think there's anything incorrect about that. It's just a little bit unusual. So
yes.
I wanted to ask the question here so everyone was aware. I won't get into the setbacks. Brian already discussed that. And we've already discussed the plat, consolidation plat, so that's a good thing. The rest of the comments that I have on my memo from January 30th are really advisory in nature for you guys as you move forward, so you know some of the things to expect as you move through the process. So that's all I got, Chairman.
I have nothing further to add.
I just had some comments just to kind of follow up on the article. Actually, the first one I did have on the landscaping, and I know you guys are still working through that. But in regards to kind of this area right here, I would make sure you guys kind of investigate that a little bit more and make sure that there's proper screening for that. Just based on the variances I thought about, you might want to make sure that area right there, this area right here looks great. I think I would just pay attention to this area right here to make sure that that's screened adequately with that house being right there. How you guys handle that? It's kind of up to you. Or maybe make the pond, potential pond a little bit more elongated in that lawn area, and then maybe pull that mound a little bit further that way to screen that house a little bit better. That might be beneficial, especially if we go back to easy, and they might appreciate that they can see that you guys taken note of all those different components. And then in terms of like an architectural standpoint, I did agree with Pam in regard, and Brian in regards to reducing the height of that tower. I had a couple thoughts on it, on maybe if you do lose that either span, that brings it down, but in 17 feet to 42 feet, that's quite a height difference right there, so I'm kind of investigate that a little bit more, maybe even getting it down more and doing some clear story windows, or maybe a little bit taller or wider, if you are trying to bring light down into that area. And then doing an architectural element on the elevation of the parking lot side that would mimic the other side of the main tower. It doesn't have to be nearly as tall as that, but maybe some kind of a pitch roof element or kind of it or something like that along that, just to kind of signify your entrance right there. I think it looks nice. And I did agree with you in terms of if you do go that revised look, doing standing seat metal would not be ideal for that. So I think keeping it with an asphalt shingle would be a problem. I think those were my main comments in regards to the architectural components of things. Right now, so, but I love it. It's really nice.
On the northern border, as it relates to the landscape, do you know if there's a lot of, I'm just looking at Google, seeing if there are some trees, if there is a lot of that on your property that you removed and replaced, or is a lot of that on the property owners?
I would have to look at that. I think a lot of that is on our property.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how close, if that's.
Well, our property lines are right about there. You can almost see
Okay.
it. So yeah, some of that stuff is all on their property.
Okay, so some of that will remain, so like some of the.
I would recommend showing that to some extent on the plans when you guys go back. That way, because and I get that's not part of your property, but maybe clearly signify that so people understand that if you are, there's a bunch of existing screening there, you're going to add a little bit more, so it's going to create more of a buffer there. I think that'll go a long way for them. And then the other comment I did have too, sorry to jump back to the architectural. When you guys do come back, bring a materials board of all the different materials plan, you think
Yeah.
would be a good idea.
Yeah, we'll bring that.
Joe? Okay, I got everybody back here.
You did.
Yeah, so I think, Mr. Francis, your advice would be, is this something that we want to table it? Is that, that's the problem.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to table it necessarily, because technically under Robert's rules, you'd be tabling it to the end of the meeting. So you continue it. I would suggest you continue it to a date certain, because this way the public can follow the process.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've made application for the variances or what that looks like.
I was unaware that those have been carried till tonight, so I guess I have to go back and look at the BZA submittal timeframe.
Yeah, so you think they can get on the BZA for the March 16th?
The deadline is on there. It's February, is it February?
February 18th, so you'd have 4 days to make the March meeting.
He says I can do it.
There's like 100 hours.
Yes, I know exactly what I'm doing for the rest of the night.
March next 4 days.
I guess we could do that, and hopefully you can be back here. Well, I guess when our deadline for the next meeting is February 25th, so it's not a whole lot of turnaround time. You may end up having to get to the.
So March 16th is their meeting, so March 25th would be the next time we could submit if everything went well.
If everything went well, yeah, I mean, you
So
have February 25th, you won't even have your meeting yet before you have to have stuff resubmitted here. I guess, if you go on the assumption that you get everything, you could still submit back if you can make the 25th. If not, you're probably looking at March 25th, just after their meeting, to get on our April one. So if we continue it to April, if you come back in March, then that's fine.
Okay.
I would continue it. I'd do it opposite, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. I'd continue it to your March 21st meeting. If they can't make that, we'll continue it to your April meeting.
Okay.
And that way, again, it just gives members of the public the ability to follow the chain.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Somebody has a problem. I will make a motion to continue this to the March 21st Planning Commission meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, any other comments? All in favor? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I can, to the applicant, architect and the applicant, if you don't necessarily have to operate in a vacuum. You can if you want to, but you can always request meetings with the staff as well. And I could go through Mr. Rodick. So if you wanted to meet with myself or Ms. Schultz or the engineer, you could do that.
All right, that'd be very helpful.
Yep.
Yeah,
So that-
just
and go
schedule through Bob's
Yep.
office.
Okay. Okay, thank you, sir. Have a great evening.
All right, thank you. All right, next is Magnolia Wash.
Yeah.
No, we don't have.
Don't have to sign it.
It's that one.
Joe did. Okay.
It's a continuation. We're on our seven here.
You don't need this one?
I know.
Okay.
All right, and I know you've been here before, but you don't mind giving your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, I'm Bob Johnson, JOHNSON with MDM Services, representing Magnolia Wash Holdings.
Why don't you give us an overview of what's occurred since the last meeting, and I know you just brought a new plan tonight, I think.
Yeah, it's just a refinement based on some of the staff comments. But before I do that, Mr. Chair, I want to apologize on behalf of MDM for Mr. Hillary. Apparently had a conversation with Mr. France and Ms. Schultz, and things got misinterpreted, but it was no intent to deceive or mislead. But I talked to Mr. Rodick, and I would appreciate Mr. Rodick bringing it to my attention. And so we consolidated communication. So I just want to thank Bob for bringing that forward, and we were able to resolve the issue. So thank you, Bob. So with that being said, the plan that you have before us, we listened to the staff, and you can see there's some significant changes to our plan. The elevations, the site layout. We also submitted the stormwater piece, and I'll get to that in a bit. But in terms of the site layout, and Mr. France pointed out in terms of the massing, we pushed the building towards State Route 8, so the entry now is on the east side as opposed to the west side of the site. And we have, there's on page 1 of what you'll, I don't know if you all look at the first page, but the upper left-hand corner, that glass would be a 20 panel glass panel door. It's an actual overhead door that's on the west elevation facing State Road 8. To the right, the east elevation is the one that faces the road, the access road, if you will. And then we corrected the west, which would be the southwest corner of the building. We showed this sort of panel glass, but instead now you see we have a complete open, and in terms of very visible, no confusion, very consistent, glazed program going on the south side of the building. Now on the north side, this was really challenging because it's not a pass-through hallway. It is a the drivers stay in their vehicles, so we don't have people walking through where you have maybe a more intense car wash where folks. And I'm sorry for my ignorance at the time of the first meeting because I'm relatively new with MDM, so that little operational issue I wasn't completely mastering. But it's a self-service system, so we will not have clients or customers walking through the building. Okay. So that north elevation, we did add additional windows, but there again, it is just really a bunch of dead space, if you will, like storage areas and non-customer areas. The page CE, which is Ms. Schultz pointed out the canopy detail that she wanted to see, and you can see that we provided that. I also, which I don't know if you're really interested, we're doing a project in South Carolina, Malden. Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to show you some pictures that just came to me today on my project down there. And I thought it was important just to kind of see the
the form and character of what we do. So what we're showing here is what we will do, is my point. So here are the canopies that Ms. Schultz had asked for detail on. And so they're different from the other canopies that we have in South Carolina, for example, but we're listening to you, we're responding to you. And as I told Mr. Rodick, we're here to comply. The following page is the trash enclosure detail. While it's not in color, it shows the detail. It's going to be a masonry. It's going to be where we're going to have a maintenance-free covering. We've heard Ms. Schultz, and what's maintenance-free? Does not want paint on the gates, so we're going to do something, whether it be powder coated or something that's durable, other than just a paint finish that may be subjected to chipping. So there's the detail of the trash enclosure.
Just, go back to the doors, and it looks like it's a solid material.
It is a solid. It's shown as a solid material.
Okay, so it's not a chain link fence.
It's not a chain link fence. That's correct.
Color to match, so that'll be.
And the only thing I would say, I'm sorry, I'm on my.
That's okay. I was too.
Glasses on. I'm trying to make the detail out. Just if I could get back to you, Mr. Chair, make sure it's a solid.
I think it says.
Does it say solid?
Urethane gate.
Just turn on the color. Does it say what it is?
Sorry.
Yeah, it doesn't say what the gate closure or what the gates actually are made of.
Urethane
gate.
So, to me, that sounds like it's a solid material. I guess you confirm, if you confirm that, it's not some chain link fence on a hinge.
Sure. Okay. So this is the trash. So you see, we'll confirm the trash enclosure there. We have the next page is site signage plan. So the only sign that we're showing right now is there at what would be the southeast corner of the parcel as you're entering. Again, we're still researching what we can do on that mining sign that's at State Road 8 in Highland, East Highland, where we took the price shaking and they're going panels there. But so at any rate, so we have the will showing the location of the signage along our east boundary of the parcel there, southeast corner of the parcel. Now, before I move on, I wanted to address the width of the entrance for both ingress and egress. The last page, make sure we weren't asked to do this, fire chief, but I brought it up. I'm like, what's the turning radius for fire trucks? Because you want to make sure, the reason why it's so wide is so your trucks can get in and out. I just wanted to point that we're also mindful of safety. We moved the trash enclosure, as you can see on same page, the signage page for the fire truck lane path. You'll see the trash enclosure is just to the west of the canopies now, so it's no longer in that west corner, that southwest corner of the site, Mr. France, where you kind of get a concern about this. So we kind of gained it towards the canopy. And staging or stacking of vehicles, we count 8. There are 2 vehicles that are going to be underneath the canopy, 1 each side, and then 3 behind you, so you have a total of 8 vehicles. It takes 60 to 90 seconds, again, self-service. You take the credit card, you put it in, you hit the option, number 4, number 5, whatever, for the type of wash you want, you process the transaction, spit your card out, you give to the code, you drive up, you punch the code in as your punch go past the canopy as you punch this code. So the point being is that with the stacking, you're going to have 8 vehicles, 1 under each the canopy lanes, and then 3 behind. So you have 8 vehicles off of the shared road with Kentucky Fried Chicken. So you just look at the physical dimensions of the like the parking spaces, for example. We'll be able to get 3 cars from behind the canopy and then 1 in each lane of the canopy for a total of 8 vehicles from the stacking standpoint. So with the quick processing, the transactional processing, cars moving through. Now the other thing, the question that Mr. France brought forward is that pass-through lane. Well, the pass-through lane is for this reason, ladies and gentlemen. If someone decides they get that call that Johnny's at school just fell off the playground equipment, and mom, dad has to get over there quickly, they're not going to sit and go through the tunnel if they're not in the tunnel. What they're going to do is they're going to boogie out. That's the escape lane for them to get out of the facility without having to go through the tunnel.
I would guess for, mechanical breakdown, it's gonna be more than 5 minutes or something like that, want to try and back out cars.
That's a good point too. There's something that happens within the tunnel.
Part of stuck, somebody's screws.
And they're moving people out. That's all it's for. It's just so people are able to, move out of the going into the tunnel and to be able to exit. So we get that throughput without having a bottleneck and folks being irate for one reason or another because we didn't plan for this release valve. So that's what it is, the release valve for the facility. Okay. In terms of so there we have the photometric plan, and I'm not the photometric engineer by any stretch. So this would be through plan review and discussing what needs to be the appropriate coverage, photometric coverage, and illumination, and the layout of lighting elements. But photometric plan is included, and what's not before you now, but the engineer is it Mr.
Gelati.
Gelati, thank you, Mr. Gelati. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Gelati has concerns with what we submitted. Now, unbeknownst to us, and we were mystified, quite frankly, because if you know the site what was on the site previously, the diner, I think it was Asian Diner, if I'm not mistaken.
There's about 30 different restaurants.
Yeah, the round building.
Impervious area, impervious surface area. I mean, I remember looking at an aerial photograph and thing like a truck stop, pretty sizable. So I'm looking at it like, how in the world did they drain the site? I mean, and now we have it wasn't an orphan site, it was actually being used as a functioning site with just a immense area that was impervious surface. Come to find out, I called Mr. Grassa up because with the Alta survey that we had from the broker, didn't show all of the improvement. I'm not here to, yield the survey on this thing in terms of areas of emission. But apparently, certain drain infrastructure was not shown on that Alta survey. Talking to Mr. Grassa, he has an Alta survey that shows the improvements that go across into our client's parcel, that connects and then drains to the north I forget the name of the drain, to the north of Key Inn. But it's in that, so there's a facility that's already there to drain. Because it was like, how did they do this? Was it in the road, in the access road, not State Road 8? But where was the facility located? And Mr. Grassa was able to share that drawing with us. Of course, I quickly shoveled that over to our guys, and we submitted to Mr. Gelati to see if, get a reaction. But if there's any modifications that's required, additional information, my plea to you all is that let's plan review, because as I expressed to Mr. Rhoden, we are here to comply. If there's going to be plan review comments coming back when we submit the building plans, I mean, I was a former, in my previous life, dealt with, and I had a building official reported to me as a director, and we always had issues. Meaning that, there were plan review revisions that go back. I mean, that's just part of the nature of the beast. And we expect the same thing. But it's about working together, having open lines of communication, and the intent is to comply. There's no underhandedness going on. We just want to make sure we present our truthful and honest presentation for purposes of your consideration. We've listened intently. I have samples of material here to show the Western Reserve material, and here's a sample for it. I have the full scale utility brick in that box over there. I can bring it up here. I think Mr. Rodick was clear. Bring it to the meeting, don't send it to me. So I do have it sitting in the box, but this is representative in terms of the color palette. There are some modifications based on what Ms. Schultz has asked for, like for the EFIS material, for example, she wants buff. And then there's some metal trimmings and so forth, but I brought representative materials a sample of the materials that we intend to use. Again, this is just the color, it's not the scale. The scale is sitting there. So with that, ladies and gentlemen,
I know he addressed a bunch of your stuff with France, but if you'd like to go through comments anyway, and anything else that you missed or you want to point out?
Sure, I can go through my report. So the biggest thing is the building's been flipped, and so the main entrance is now located fronting the private drive. The exit is fronting Route 8, which is something that we talked about at the last meeting. I think that's an improvement to have that pay canopy closer to the private drive rather than out on fronting on Route 8. I think the relocated dumpster, if I heard the applicant's agent correctly, they are moving that off of the private drive, or is it staying in its current location?
The trash enclosure?
Yes.
It is to the west of the canopy. So if you look at page SP1, it's essentially the site science plan. And actually, any of those plans that show the site plan, you'll see the trash enclosure is just to the west of the canopies now, the pay station canopies.
Did you have a?
The ones that I just delivered on 10 of them tonight.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. So it's where the employee parking is.
It was, yes, exactly right, Mr. Prince.
And then-
The employee parking was there.
Where does the employee parking go now?
If you go just to the southwest on the diagonal, you'll see the two perpendicular spaces to the curb.
Yeah.
Not the, all the
I
angle
see
spaces
them.
there are for, again, the vacuum stations.
Mm-hmm.
So those two perpendicular spaces are the two employee parking.
Okay. So that was one issue, was trying to relocate that so it's not in such a visible location. And then the gate enclosure issue, the site plan C1 doesn't quite match the dumpster detail, I think. It's showing split face block, cedar fence. But it sounds like it's a metal gates. I just commented that the gate can't be corrugated metal. But we can work out those final details, I'd say. And then just felt that the dumpster enclosure shouldn't be screened with a fruit-bearing species, but if it's on private property and they want it to be drop fruit, that's fine. And then I still think, again, it's a very visible site. And so the exit fronting Route 8, something needs to occur with the architectural, sort of that elevation. It's highly visible and prominent, something, and I gave an example of the Panera Bread, how that's a faux front. It's not a customer entrance, but it's designed to provide that architectural significance out on Route 82. So I just feel something should be added to the exit. And then I respectfully cannot get past the one-way and mom and the soccer mom in the minivan. The way it scales out, you have room for one car to be able to really exit out that one way. I try to strive to reduce pavement whenever possible and create a bigger tree lawn in this case. I still think you can do it. If the commission's fine with the one-way, you're going to get probably one car out of there, and that's bumper to bumper, assuming they're riding the shirt tails going into the car wash area. I don't feel as though that's necessary from a pavement standpoint.
Because when I look up with that, Mr. Fritz, like, there's other cars that I've gone to the get-go, whatever. And there has been times I've pulled up to the thing, scans me, says it's good. I've got like the cheapo monthly pass, and the door doesn't open. And I could go in and complain, or I'll come back because and there's a driveway that goes around it. If somebody was riding my tail, they'd have to back up a little bit to get out. But if not, I got to back, even if it wasn't there, nobody's behind me, I got to back up all this distance, and turn back to not wipe out the little, post and things. Granted, you are almost, somebody's going to be too far, but somebody should be able to get out in a couple cars, and then if something catastrophic happens to the machines, I'm thinking. The mom was to go pick up their kid who's throwing up somewhere, she may be stuck because the guy in front of her doesn't want to get out. But I think, to me, more of something mechanically goes wrong with this. At least these ones are staffed, right? This car wash is staffed. There's somebody in
Staff, yes.
At least it'd be somebody there to help, potentially direct those people out of there. But I kind of see the purpose of it.
Yeah, again, it's up to the commission if you feel it's something that you want to continue to see on the site, then that's fine. I mean, I can understand there's a need to, in rare circumstances, get somebody out. From my standpoint, it's better to have more green than it is that rare circumstance. But whatever the commission, ultimately decides.
This is in case you want to go home quickly.
The
And then how do you get out?
I still come back to the apron issue. It's extremely wide. Both the apron and the lanes in and out to get into the ingress and egress into the site. And maybe I missed it somewhere in the site plan package that there's a auto turn to show a fire truck come in
If you look at the last page, Mr. Francis,
on the existing.
on the one that I just delivered this
Oh.
evening, sir.
Is that middle island no actually needed? Because I wonder if that would help take care of part of the problem, to like bring that a little bit tighter together and not have to have here on this island right here, and tighten that up like Brian said, you can still meet your turn radius. I think that island is what's causing this issue for you.
Yeah, is there anything in the island? Or is it just?
Separation as far as I'm aware, the separation that differentiates the ingress egress.
That might be the key right
I
there.
think that is, I think the year to that, I think it helps tighten all this up quite a bit.
Because I was trying to look at the juice, because the juice needs to be out for both the in and the out. I'm like, I don't know if that would work, because you just gotta get the truck back out. But yeah, if the island wasn't there, it doesn't.
I think you eliminate that island, and I think you take care of the problems. I agree with Brian, that's a huge win for entrance and exiting, and this, I mean, there's conditions like that are smaller than this around here, and I'm assuming the fire truck doesn't have any issues that could be wrong, but, I mean, I appreciate what you did there, and I didn't see that, but I think if you eliminate that island, you can bring that in quite a bit. And the other thing you're showing here too is, I mean, if there's a fire, the fire truck's gonna, they can go that way by eliminating that island, and then getting out of here, nobody really should be in the way. So again, getting rid of that island, I think is gonna take care of lighting the trunking that up. Probably even get an additional parking space or two for the employees, or just keep it grass if we wanna get some additional landscaping on that side, and or at the entrance on the other side, it would look nice too.
Quick question. Maybe this is for the fire chief in terms of something that's mountable at your vehicles. I know during these intersections, fire apparatus, not necessarily, firefighters aren't crazy about that, but in terms of, is there something, let's say the client wants to have the differentiated between egress and egress, is there something that's mountable for your vehicles that's acceptable? I mean, the old curb. I'm sorry, just a road curb. I just want to make sure it's okay with the fire department, yeah. I mean, there's something I think.
Clearance is what, 8 inches in some of these trucks, but, yeah, I would say that island would make it difficult.
So, my point is, if you narrow it down, and fill it with the complex, then also differentiate that and either separate it with some sort of physical. Yeah, if it wasn't, but something mountable, but so you can narrow it for that very purpose, or it needs the fire department.
Can I ask our fire representative a question? So in the case of fighting a fire in this instance, would you really go into the site? It's like 60 feet of hose. Would you not fight the fire from the perimeter?
I would, well, yeah, I was gonna ask the same question, just go straight in.
Yeah, and I don't know what, looking at these distances, I mean, I would think you pull in. You don't want to put yourself on 5-7, that's not that difficult. Yeah, I don't know that you would pull in.
Yeah, I would think you would.
Just into the nose in there, but you may, if you're doing an investigation, you may pull in the parking lot and not stay on the street.
Yeah. Well, you're not going to pull a pumper truck probably in there, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, 'cause you'd have to back it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, Brian. I was gonna ask the same question. In an emergency, you may just pull straight in westbound
Exactly.
into the common drive between the car wash and KFC and operate from there. And Chairman, also, the auto turn that they've provided today, if there are cars in line for a car wash, those maneuvers can't be made, you know what I mean?
Oh, we'll get them out of there, Mr. Engineer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if the fire engine is coming, it's an emergency. If there's a car anywhere near there, the whole maneuvers aren't gonna be able to be made, so they probably pull straight in, so.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess consider all that.
Yeah, sure,
They
sure.
may not even want to get into that parking lot and do all the,
Understood.
the maneuverability test. There, you're part of it, that could be the case, and yeah, we'd love to see that narrowed up, so a little bit of control.
And the only other item, Mr. Chairman, that I had really was, is it related to the photometrics? And that may be cleared up on the revised plans. And it's not a super significant, but something I think we just want to make sure that they don't exceed a foot candle at all property lines.
In your eyes, maybe better than mine, Brian, but you may need to get that electronically. Unless you got a magnifying.
Yeah, I zoomed.
I'm starting to get that.
I zoomed
It's
in.
really small.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yeah, but I don't think the applicant has any issue with complying with that, and it's easily accommodated, so. So I felt, even with, some of the comments I had, I just felt that it still could be approved subject to a final administrative compliance check, and do appreciate, again, flipping the building and working with the city on making some of these changes.
Mr. Galani?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for the explanation regarding the new existing condition survey and the catch basin. I kind of had figured out that myself as well that that's what was going on. So appreciate the explanation. I guess I would say, has it been verified? Well, because now there's two existing condition surveys, one from late last year and one from October of 15. Obviously, October of 15 was quite a while ago, and the site was at least somewhat disturbed or reworked when the round building was removed. Has it been verified what's out there? Because I guess if the survey from last year did not show this catch basin, but you have a survey from 6 years ago that does show it, I would strongly recommend that you guys verify not just whether or not the catch basin is there, but really everything on the site. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I'd hate for you guys to rely on a survey that's 6 years old, and then you go to construction and you find that things are not what you thought they were out there, because that can cause a problem for you. And then the other couple of comments I had here from, I guess we'll call it the resubmittal from just the other day. And I know you're not the design site engineer. I think that person is in Florida, if I'm reading all of this correct. But in summary, I think to develop the site, there does indeed need to be some stormwater detention on the site. And I see what the site engineer in Florida submitted. He did some calculations and what have you to try to indicate that it wasn't necessary. But I've got a couple of questions or issues with the way that was laid out. So I don't know if I want to work through Bob and you and get that information to you, and then either yourself or even if the design engineer down in Florida wants to reach out directly with me to have a little back and forth, I'm happy to do that. I have some markups here that you haven't seen because I just did them, that I'd be happy to share with you and your design engineer as well. So, but I think that's the real item is that there does need to be some stormwater detention there, I believe. So, and I think that's all I got.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The only other difference would be with commercial property, 300 feet to a hydrant. There's a hydrant there at Key In, but that's a private hydrant, so you may have to add an additional one from Highland. The fire line that runs back to Key In is private from, I think, their driveway back, so where they could tie into that line with their permission. I don't believe that's a public main that goes back there.
But the main is in an easement to Cleveland Water.
Okay.
So, yeah, so
you
the
could tie
main,
into that.
they would have
You would
the
have
ability
access
to
to
tie
that.
into that main, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it's not owned by Key In.
Yeah, and so City of Macedonia is more restrictive than a fire code. It's just 300 feet versus the fire code was 400 feet.
And that was, I'm sorry, it was 300 feet from?
From the building. From the building.
Thank you. Mr. Rodick, do you have anything?
I just was going to add that, we actually have two memos from Mrs. Schultz, one dated February 6th and one dated February 10th. And it looks like the majority of things that she actually has on her memos are kind of check boxes. So we'll have to go ahead and review with the current set of plans that we just received tonight.
Okay. Commission, what questions?
I had one question. Ms. Schultz brought up something. Was it going to be full brick? Is it where you're planning? I noticed those are, it's full brick, not half brick.
I have the entire full course.
Well, I just
Yes,
wondered, because
yes.
she was kind of
This is-
strong on that,
Yes, very much so. We're going to, this is the color palette, but the dimensional brick is sitting in that box right here. It's just I can bring it over.
You can accommodate her issues. You got the two letters that
Yes,
she
sir.
wrote?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, well.
Which is the main color, I guess, off that palette? Because I'm looking at like KFC and I'm seeing, I'm just, like, I don't know. You go ahead and tell me.
Well, yeah. I'm not the architect, I'm just the messenger, I guess.
All right.
When it comes to like the main, whatever, just what I can, this is probably inappropriate, if I can show you the picture, just from the South Carolina project, because our client came up, we had to adjust, I'm sorry about, I'm going to bring up a picture here, guys, ladies and gentlemen, but I have here, just to show you, and this is different color, please, it's not the representative color that we do here, but this is the Malden, South Carolina site that we have. And so this is a retrofit of an existing car wash. So we're using brick material. Now this is more like a veneer. It's not full utility brick, so it's different. But you see that what we're doing, this is a retrofit of a junky car wash in Malden, South Carolina, and we're dressing it up. I mean, big time. So we're not going to cut shit. So whatever the color scheme needs to be, we'll work with Ms. Schultz on it to make sure that the ratio of color.
Yeah.
This is just to show the colors that in terms of complying with, the scale, the palette that Ms. Schultz has asked us to represent. But in terms of the ratio, I can't speak to the ratio. Which one is going to be more dominant than the other?
I think it just needs, I'm personally not a fan of any of those colors in that at all. I think it needs to be more of a red tone, similar like the brick that's on the, I'm not saying the exact brick, but something that's got more of like a red rose color to it, like the KFC. I think that's more conducive to like what would be complement the neighboring building and also the building around there. I think that's not something, and even the colors that you guys are proposing for the roofs and stuff, I think those need to be something along the lines of like charcoal or something along that. So that all I know, the brown is not really, I don't think it complements the area very well.
That's the big guy primarily more red. Yes.
I would suggest maybe the architect is looking at these roofs in some of the area a little bit better and kind of pulls from some of those colors. The red definitely, and that's what we're seeing here. And then you show us that, and that's two very different.
Well, and then what I have here, just, here, go ahead. Just bring it up. This.
That's like that.
So this here So.
That's a lot different.
This is full scale. Now, the only thing.
He's leaving that to you, Bob.
This is really. This
That
could be
color.
the color that's also part of this. I know that this is part of the scheme. I believe this is as well. This is the full, you can see full utility break. This is what we're going to install, so in terms of dimensions. Yeah, right. Colors, well, this, I mean, all work. This
Yeah,
work.
that I would say yes to. I mean, I don't even think these two, if these two are supposed to go together, I don't think they go together. I think it's that color right there, and if you want to bring another tone of red in, like some other kind of like a red blend, but they,
I think this is the building. This was the bylaws. Regardless, we're here to work. We'll get this.
No, we appreciate that.
We'll get it figured out.
Yeah, I think as long as, if the primary color could be something closer to
Sure,
that.
of
Yeah,
course,
if there
of
is
course.
details, I don't know. That's not my thing, and hopefully, we'll to look at the specific colors too. I think just everything else we're trying to go with in town is primarily that red.
Yeah.
Sort of like this picture, right? That's sort of what you want.
Yeah, that, I mean, I think that looks really nice, even if this was another tone of that, I think, like that and this, they're two completely different things. I think the red more would be what we would want to see. And I think, I appreciate you guys doing this right here. I think that's a huge added detail to make that all glass. I think, these doors need to have some kind of, whether they be some form of glass too. I get that when you get to kind of back house spaces, again, it's kind of difficult to do certain things, but I think doing something a little bit more backer on those doors. And then, now with this being more like a red brick, I think the brown and the red really they're gonna clash. So I think you guys need to relook at kind of what those colors are. You know, if it's a black or something else like a dark gray. Especially since you guys want more of like a white color on this, on the this being more of like a white color. I think that would both kind of blend together nicely.
Well, can't he work with Mrs. Schultz? I mean, she's the professional. I mean, we're opining what it should look like, but she's got pretty definite ideas. Don't you think that that's who he should work with?
She had sent me this.
Yeah, she sent me this too, but.
I think we're allowed to give our opinions on the looks. I mean, she's advising us, and we can either pass on hers, or we can give our own opinions as well.
I think something additional, like she had noted, too, needs to be done to the tower element.
Right.
Brian, I think you noted that as well. Something this side needs to be dressed up a little bit more, and I would suggest doing a little something in the back here, because again, like there's been discussions that this at some point will continue to be developed or enhanced. So this at some point will not become the back of the building, it'll become part of that drive. So I think keeping that in mind, not putting a ton of emphasis on this, but just a little bit more detail into it. Maybe back here, just this does become glass door as well, and that can take care of that back elevator, that elevation. But again, something on the front, I think there needs to be a little bit more detail behind that. I don't know if it's a different kind of a tower element or something that's accentuated a little bit more. Maybe even doing something that's similar to what KFC had done next door, where they have kind of the hip roof structure there. That might help kind of, this just looks really wide and short, and I think if there was just a little something different, kind of a detailed perspective up top, that it would help it.
Do you got any thoughts or questions?
Oh, I was thinking that you did something like on the front here, similar to what KFC did on here, so if you look at what they did.
Yeah.
So if you look at too many changes down there, it helps break that front up a little bit, and makes it not look as out of the lake. This just seemed really shallow, and that's really wide. So it doesn't even have to necessarily be, it's just maybe some kind of like maybe the tower and maybe something a little bit here that helps break that mass up a little bit. And I'm on, just kind of a thought there, and then that would help tone that down a little bit, bring a little bit more to proportion or something like that. Especially.
That's what I'm saying, so wheelchair, that's the difference.
Mr. Cox, do you have any comments?
So I guess, did you guys have any comments on this?
Yes.
Bob, can you just clarify again what brick it is that you're going to use?
So this is the brick that we're going to use.
Okay.
That's what we're using. That was just for color. That wasn't necessarily, the dimension of that was just for the pilasters. And in terms of the color, we're wide open, just like the example I was showing the gentleman of the commission here from the South Carolina project. Whatever Ms. Schultz, whatever you all decide, we're able to work with, because we understand the form and character that you're going after. So we may be off the mark a little bit, but we are not way outside of the bounds. We just need to refine it.
So
It's just details.
I just want to clarify. So that, what you're showing right there is to show that you're using a full masonry brick.
That's correct.
That's the purpose of that
And
material.
and the color as well.
Okay, that color matches somewhere on this palette that's proposed. And then, so this is marigold, which is what's on my plans that I reviewed. But I think you provided an updated set here, maybe tonight, that shows a different color than this. So if this is your color sample, this doesn't match what's on the sheets tonight. So and that's fine. You can work out the colors with the city and with Pam. I'm just saying, this is not what's being proposed according to the resubmittal, which is good, because I'm hearing from the commission, they don't like this. So.
The revision bubbles around the colors down here.
Yeah, they don't match us.
Carolina Rose.
I think
So
either one of those
probably
would
they didn't
fine.
update your.
Exactly. The samples were done in advance.
Sure.
Of the revisions from Michigan, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, there is a delay.
Yeah, I just so for the record, so it stands clear, that is not the color palette.
That's been changed.
Yeah, that's been changed.
That's
Yep.
good to know. I guess I don't know, for the things that have been updated from your end up here, do you feel like you need to sit down with these new plans and take a harder look at it? I think from our end, it's looking more like it's architectural type issues
Yeah.
are what's remaining. Decide how to handle both, but I mean, you guys have outstanding issues that need to be.
I'm comfortable with, for me, I'm comfortable with if the commission approved it subject to, I'd be fine with that. My most uncomfortable piece that makes me squirm in the chair a little bit is what fronts on Route 8. And I think that was just talked about, and Pam has talked about that. I feel like we can get resolution. And so if the commission's happy with the staff reaching that resolution, that's fine by me. If you want to see it again, then you'll need to bring it back. It's entirely up to you guys.
How about the retention pond? It needs water. It was Mr. Gelati's issue. Do we need to administratively approve that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say this much. Historically, our group here, we've either hashed that out, or the applicant, like Bass Jewelers just a moment ago, they indicate an area on the plans for stormwater detention, and that's plenty good enough for our planning commission purposes, and we approve it. But here, I guess the plans that are being contemplated here at the moment don't show any stormwater detention. So, I'm not sure if you guys are comfortable approving the plan tonight that doesn't show the stormwater detention, and then just simply relying on me to make sure we follow through and it occurs. I mean, if that's what you choose to do, of course, I'll do that for you guys, but that's not how we've historically proceeded. Am I off base, or?
No.
What would it do? Is your schedule okay if you came in for one more meeting, showed us any other architectural changes, figured out a little bit more, a little deeper into the drainage, looked at the driveway issue? These are kind of loose ends that I think any one of them, maybe by themselves, we pass on to the administrative review.
Well,
No, go ahead.
well, Mr. Grasser is still here. Our client, in terms of acquiring the property, I don't want to, that's Mr. Grasser's business, more so than it's mine. there are some timeframes that they're dealing with. And again, like I said in my opening remarks, we're here to comply. And I appreciate where we started and where we're at right now. We have some short stroke issues. We have to get out of the sand trap in a few areas. But I think we have the right approach to what, to achieve some equitable resolution to this. And we're going to meet the city engineer's requirements for stormwater management. That's a given, just like we're going to meet the electrical code and the plumbing code. We're going to meet all of these things. And I guess the issue in terms of not showing the stormwater retention facility on the site, there's the swale, for example, looking at KFC, we're trying to figure out KFC, they have a swale, I think, outside in front. Maybe that's how they did it, that's their business. But we're looking at it and we're saying we have the 25-foot, we have the connection, whatever is acceptable, we're going to make sure we achieve that. I just I'm always hopeful that the planning commission with conditions, administrative review, where we have to meet the requirements of the staff before permits are issued. But we just wanted to keep the process moving because now I have to resubmit this broken issue again, and I find it's a holding issue as well.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm going to bring up, looking through here, and usually on a project, you have a site plan, grading plan / grading plan, something like that. It shows the utilities also. I think that would be beneficial here because I don't see any location of a fire hydrant shown on here. I don't see any grades shown on here that you're using. And you can use that same plan to show a stormwater retention basin because there's not a whole lot of either one of those items. So I think you can show all of those basically on some type of plan. But right now, I agree with Mr. Gigliotti that the stormwater control is a serious function. And I don't think that we can really approve that without that being shown on the plan.
And just getting these today too, I mean, Pam hasn't seen these, this is the first time we're seeing these. I mean, I think, again, one of the comments that Pam still had outstanding is we're not going to involve this elevation that she hasn't seen yet, which didn't have any changes made to it. And then I also was going to bring up I had some other comments in regards to the pay station stands. We just kind of anchoring that a little bit differently. Whether we having a column that comes back on the side so it doesn't look so kind of off-centered. I kind of think we need to at least let this go through a little more round of review and call us and for the other parties involved.
I think you, with respect to my colleague, I think you've pretty much come across with what the architectural requirements are. From an engineering standpoint, I think we need more information. Okay. I think it's going to be critical for the fire department to know where the hydrants are. We were just talking about that a little while ago, but it's nice to have it on a plan too, and your utilities. Okay. And I think Mr. Gigliotti brings up a good point, that you're using a survey that's years old. You may want to verify that with a more modern one.
Well, yes, sir. Yeah, the one that we were provided by the and just see that was.
It wouldn't be that much longer, would it? Our next hearing, just like the last hearing, we could, even though we kick it over, it's not, what, April or March or something?
Right, it'd be the March meeting, I think.
Yeah.
We could easily.
I think you can wrap this up fairly soon.
I think, no one, yeah, and I think particularly having the, just getting the plans today, and knowing Mr. Schultz has not seen this at all, Mr. France hasn't, I think he feels, taking a quick scan, he feels pretty good that most of his issues are being addressed, but it would be nice to have just a solid, full chance to review this. I hate the whole job. I feel like now I'm almost struggling with ways to think of how can we kick it through to keep it moving. And it's like, I don't know if maybe I'm pushing too hard to try and find a way to just push it through to keep it moving. I hate to hold you up another meeting, but I kind of feel like maybe it would be good. I think I'm feeling pretty good about a lot of stuff, but definitely our reviewer and Mr. Wohlhurst both feel something with this routing facing.
What's this
elevation, should be addressed. And then that gives you a chance to look into some stuff from July, just to get a little bit, the drainage nailed down a little bit more. And that way we're not just, pushing you through to keep your schedule moving when there is still legitimate questions kind of out there. I think you've done a good job of answering most of them. I've gone in front of a lot of planning commissions, and a lot of times they won't even, oh, you didn't draft it, I can't look at this because you didn't give it to us. A lot of times we're trying to look at it most of it today. I think it covers most of the stuff, but I don't want to rush the process. I also don't want to hold you up, but I think at this point, I feel like we kind of do need to give the professionals a little more chance to take a look at it, give you a chance to get some more of these revisions on paper in front of us. I think we're going down the right path. I think you have been very compliant. Like you said, it's your goal is to do what we're asking, do what the professionals are asking, and you haven't pushed back on much of anything.
I agree. I think it's been great.
But I guess unless you guys have, because I would like to continue this to the March 16th. Is that the date? Meeting March 21st. March 21st.
Yeah, maybe you can get it in March. Move it up.
And March 21st.
We get going on this.
I'll guess, get it right if I say every day. Continue this to the March 21st meeting.
I'd second that.
Okay, yeah, I don't need to think too much of it. Is there any more discussion we need to have? You guys okay with that? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, and I appreciate your willingness to work this, and I would have liked to. I feel like that's all.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. And then we do have one issue tonight on our miscellaneous list, and I think hopefully everybody is aware of it. Optima is coming in. There's a field issue that came up that's requiring them to make a request for a change. Everybody read the thing, but- Come on
You
up.
have to sit on the brick. Yeah, right.
Why don't you give us an overview? I know you sent the letter, but just kind of to get it out of the record here, what issue came up here?
We had to tie into an existing stormwater system that was on our plan, based off of the documented survey on the plat. We verified it as soon as we could. It was actually 4 feet higher on our site. And so our site work contractor, our civil engineer, resubmitted. They didn't come up with a solution. We looked at everything possible other than adding a mechanical pump. We were able to reduce the 4 feet to a 0.85 feet grade adjustment. So then like it does.
About 22.
Okay. Who all has comments?
Stick with the usual order, right?
Yeah. So I have comments, but at the end of the day, this is really simple. It's a field adjustment. I understand why we're here. I put in my report dated February 12th. So it's whatever, less than a couple feet that we're talking about. So the first floor building elevation will be raised up so they can drain gravity as opposed to having mechanical equipment. Typically these are, sort of what you call minor changes, field adjustments that, if it's substantially in compliance with the approved plans, you typically make them as field adjustments. But I understand why we're bringing it back here tonight, because building height and massing, we spent a lot of time talking about that. So I think it makes a lot of sense to come back here and get the planning commission's approval. From my perspective, I don't think the less than 2 feet is going to be visible to the naked eye to really anyone going by it or standing in front of it. And I think it's pretty minimal, but conversely, the impact of requiring it to go to mechanical type system is long-term probably not in the best interest of the building owner. And so I recommended that the plan amendment be approved as submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I guess I did have a few questions. You know, we received this information late last week, whenever it was. I've taken a look at it. And in general, the building and the site have been lifted for the reasons that the applicant stated. But I guess what's not on the plan from the other day is how does the new elevation, the new proposed elevation of the site relate to the existing elevations around it, the Chipotle site, the Culver site, the new Golden Link Road, and the previous existing road, Golden Link Road. Those elevations are not shown on the new plan. So I guess when I look at this, I don't know how steep the driveways are to get down to Golden Link or get down to connect to Chipotle, and how does the new site look with regards to the new road and the culvert? You know, are we going to be substantially different or not? And that we can't say just by looking at the plan, because those spot elevations aren't shown on here.
Yeah,
So,
we did have a surveyor verify so where our finished floor is the exact same as Culver's.
Okay.
So it seems like, I believe that's where that followed the line.
Okay.
It seemed like everybody up to do that, so we are at the same bottom.
So you're saying that the originally approved plan, your building may have been 2 feet lower than Culver or Chipotle?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Can all of that survey information be provided to us if the surveyor was out there? You know, I think we should have some spot elevations on the curb for Golden Link on the west and the south side, as well as the curb and the finished floor for Culver and Chipotle as well. Because I'm hopeful that all this works out just fine, but I'd hate for us to find out later that the drive apron is too steep, or we're way higher than this building, or we're way higher than the road, or whatever it is. So.
Yes, sir, we can certainly find out.
Okay, and then I guess the other question is along those lines, if the surveyor came out to re-verify some information, did they also survey the storm sewer main and associated structures that are on the west side of Golden Link Boulevard?
They did.
It would be good to have that information also shown on the resubmittal. I guess I'm just curious if the storm connection, sorry to get into the detailed conversation, guys, but I'm just, a little part of me is curious, does this storm connection that is supposed to service the Optima building, does it have some kind of riser on it? And then that's why it's up so much higher than you guys originally thought. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't bear, I knew they surveyed all the structures around, they sent cameras through.
Okay.
As we dug, there was a second storm on the west side, I believe, that showed us a possibility.
Okay.
We dug, and I believe there's I don't know if it's a water engineer, there's an engineer sitting on site.
Okay.
Daily. We dug a 27-foot trench trying to find the west side one that was shown on the original plot survey to see if that was higher, and it wasn't, so.
Okay.
We did.
So there's actually 2 storm laterals.
There was shown on the original.
It's interesting, okay. Okay, yeah, I would think that, you know, the resubmittal should show all of these existing spot elevations that we're talking about here, just so when we review it, we can get a full picture of what's going on. So, and also along those lines, you know, as I take a quick look at this, there's in the southwest corner, and I can provide all this to Bob, and he can get it to you guys. There seems to be, the grading seems to be a little off, that we're dropping, the tree lawn drops 2 feet in a little 2-foot area, which I'm sure Optima probably doesn't want to have in the end. They won't be able to cut the grass, but Okay, that was the gist of my.
And I would say, if we do approve this, and I would think that we have something, barring you finding any major problem with the thing, if there is, then, and they realize they need to readjust again, or there's massive site changes, regrading things that need to happen, it's gonna affect driveway.
I think-
locations, then bring it back or something, but.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Chairman. Yeah, because it's a little difficult to do a full review with just the information that we have in this submittal from February 10th here, so.
Mr. Smith, do you have anything? Mr. Ruddick?
I have nothing to add.
Okay. Commission, you guys?
We can approve this subject to administrative approval, right?
I think so,
Yeah.
something like that, yeah.
I would make that motion then.
Okay. Second. All right, second. Any more discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Opposed, nobody. All right. So hopefully that works out for you guys. Unless you find some major problem.
But you're right, they need to show it.
All right, thanks.
You had to wait till our minute.
Yeah, what do you mention? Yeah.
Information here now. He's
Any other?
match, which I hope.
That's good, right. Yeah.
But actually at the right date.
Yeah, exactly. No, and if they can't do
Yeah.
it, they're gonna have to stick to the mechanical, or keep it at grade and go with the pumps.
Versus table. Yeah, I think. Maybe get up Mr. Franz.
Locked into that.
I'm sorry?
Just doing continuation of table, we're just looking for clarification, because you made that specific.
Yeah, so when you table under Robert's rules, you're tabling to the end of the meeting that you're currently sitting in or presiding over. You continue it to a future meeting. I always encourage you to,
Are we still, or did we adjourn? Or
We did not adjourn.
Okay, so.
I always
You're on the
encourage
live
you
record.
to continue it to a date certain. So if you have members of the public here to, be a part of the process, hear what's going on, they know, or they could pick up the minutes and say, this discussion went to this particular date, and they could follow that chain of the public process.
And I've heard you say that before, that, continue to a future. I don't know that I ever, until you said the specific thing of tabling just pushes it to the back of me. I don't think I ever realized the implications of that. I thought the other days were just interchangeable words. That actually is.
Yeah, it's a.
Maybe if we've done it, always meant, I think, continue it. But we've maybe used the term.
We've been doing it wrong.
Yeah, it's
all this time, it sounds like.
It's a bit akin to saying that I'm grandfathered in,
Right.
and there's no such thing. But everybody uses that. Yeah, it's legal non-conforming. So I just think, just to be clear, we continue it to a particular meeting. You could table something, and that's kind of what the BZA did in the action of the jeweler. They tabled that item, took another item, and then came back to that item and then settled it.
Okay.
So
Really?
they tabled it,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if they meant to do that, but they did. They did it right, whether they meant to do it or not.
No, I wasn't disagreeing, I just, need clarification, because that's the first time I heard it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a common.
No, I agree, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Just it's like all motions should be put in the I'm not a huge stickler, but all motions should be put in the affirmative. Now, I'm a huge stickler when it comes to the Board of Zoning Appeals. They should absolutely be put in the affirmative, and then if you don't like it, you vote it down. But the motion should be put in the affirmative.
Okay.
Sign that thing.
Oh, yeah, but there's one more thing to sign here.
I'll bring these up.
The guy said this, that I got stuff he's been hoarding.
Or pile.
Excuse me.
Sorry. All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, good motion.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.